All right, well, let's just jump in. I know we have 30 minutes together today. My name's Stephanie Shapiro. It's great to see some folks back and some new people attending. We are excited today to talk about energy benchmarking for museums in the cultural sector and using Energy Star Portfolio Manager. Let's see, Danielle, can I get the next slide, please? Great. So we're going to start with today what benchmarking is and why we need it, the path to a museum category being established for benchmarking, and then how the associations, all of you, can support the service to the sector. And so this is something that we had talked about in some prior meetings, and we've been talking about with all different associations that we're really looking to mobilize initiatives that engage associations and then the full capacity of the sector together. So this is an example of one of those sector-wide projects that we're looking to push forward. And Sarah's going to start us off, and then Danielle is going to wrap us up. Feel free to use the chat for any questions, and we're happy to have any follow-up after as well. So Sarah?
Hello, everyone. Thanks again for attending. I want to stress that this is not a lecture on how you can use Energy Star Portfolio Manager, but an introduction to what it is and what we see as the ECP team as the value to the sector. So I'll give you a little background on what kind of use the sector is making of Energy Star Portfolio Manager, what the glitch is that we're hoping we can all address together, and then a chance to talk about it a little bit. So many of you are aware of the Frankenthaler Climate Initiative that ECP co-manages with Rocky Mountain Institute for the Helen Frankenthaler Foundation. We haven't finished our third year of awards. We're about to, but the first 2 years of awards is 128 folks who use Energy Star Portfolio Manager as the way that they report on their projects. So reviews the mechanism of this grant program to give them the skills to measure and monitor energy use and calculate greenhouse gas emissions, because we know, one, it's good for reporting energy efficiency projects, but also that it's really valuable for preparing to provide grant applications and comply with code expectations of energy use and emissions reporting in all of our communities. So Frankenthaler is one of the projects that started using this. And the next one, you're right, Danielle, thank you. The next one is the Culture Over Carbon Project, which I'm sure many of you have heard about, funded by the Institute of Museum and Library Services, also wrapping up in August, which has had 213 institutions, including some folks participating in the Carbon Inventory Project, who also are using Energy Star Portfolio Manager in order to do their reporting, so that the sector can learn what our museum impacts are around energy use. So we're using, let's see the next slide. Sorry, we do want to go on to the next slide. Why are we obsessing about energy use? Because reducing our energy use and the related greenhouse gas emissions are the most important thing we can do first in fighting climate change. We know that the need to reduce greenhouse gas emissions is so wide that every single sector and every single individual, institution, or person needs to do as much as they can about it. They can only do that if they know what their impacts are. What we do know about impacts for the built sector is that it's 40% of carbon emissions. And through our Culture Over Carbon project and the Carbon Inventory project, we know that the US cultural sector is 4 million metric tons of CO2 emitted annually. Now that we know that, we can start reducing it. And we can drive funding to help us do that work. And that's part of what we're after here with the Energy Star project. So, what is Energy Star Portfolio Manager? This is a free software program provided by the Environmental Protection Agency, where anybody, an individual or an institution, can go in and key in what their energy bill was for last month. Say what type of energy they used and how much of it, and it'll calculate for them their greenhouse gas emissions from energy use. It'll also give them a chart that shows them what their monthly energy use is. And you can use that to compare year over year to how your building is performing. and help you start to manage your energy use. It can also allow you to compare to everybody else. So to the anonymized numbers of what other people's energy uses are, so that you can determine if your building is doing what it's supposed to be. And then increasingly, communities are saying you have to have a greenhouse gas emissions rate or an energy use rate that looks like X. And you need a way to show whether or not you are like X. So EPA has a ton of training manuals on how to use this. ECP now has training videos on how to use it because we discovered that it's actually a little harder for museums to use than they would like. And people needed support in understanding how to do this new part of their work. So we've been working on this project now for 3 years, and we've run into a big problem. When the folks who have a Frankenthaler grant do their Energy Star report, this is what they get on their screen. They get a big NA, and they write us in panic and they say, "What have I done wrong?" They haven't done anything wrong. They've just discovered that the museum sector has no benchmarking system. So you can put your data into Energy Star Portfolio Manager, learn a lot about your building, do the work to manage that energy, but you can't compare it to anybody else to understand what kind of performance changes you need to make. We need to establish that number, and EPA is only going to do it if we all help them do it. The goal is that by having that benchmark number, so the NA becomes a percentage compared to the average, if they have that, then they can now pay attention to where they need to reduce their energy use. They can use that number in order to satisfy local requirements, and they can use that number in order to chase more funding to say, look, it's too high, we need to bring it down. But in order to do that, EPA needs us to help out. So we're working with New Buildings Institute to create a survey which is going to go out to the cultural sector and get us to this Energy Star rating. That process is complex, and that's why we're reaching out to you today. Here's what it looks like when they go through the process of developing that Energy Star score. They need to get a nationally representative survey. Now, you saw earlier in the slides that 213 folks have given us data. And EPA, in order to have a statistically relevant data sampling, to do their modeling, to get a comparative score, need 200 really solid, well-distributed, multiple type pieces of data. We believe, and they believe, that we need to reach 300 museums completing the survey in order to get to that quality 200 number confidently. That's what we want to talk with you about today, is to share this information and say that we'd like to work with you on how to take next steps. Now, I think it was Stephanie who was going to take this slide. Go ahead.
Sure. So part of that is, and just to echo kind of what the need is for that data, it will be more involved than some of the Culture Over Carbon Inventory Project, and Frankenthaler reporting. And so we know that there's going to be effort associated with it, which is why we're coming to you early to start talking about where we think that we want geographic representation, organization type representation, et cetera, so that we have the best sample data that we can to provide to EPA. So we're really asking you to help us recruit participants to participate in this. We know we have this list of previous participants, and we'll be reaching out to them and also trying to recruit folks as well. But we need to make sure that we have a number first before we just release the survey, right? So we need to kind of have everyone, and then have make sure that we have everyone engaged and ready to complete the survey before we release it, to make sure we can reach that at least 300 number. So for what we're planning on is taking the rest of the year, basically between now and December, to work on what this promotion looks like, work with you to identify how to promote this, how to make sure that we're able to convey the importance and the impact that this can have for institutions as well as the sector. Funding being number one, having the data to back up where you are and where you are sector-wide is one of the number one things we're hearing, and we just know that funders are looking for to prove need, in addition to every other reason that we know that cultural institutions need to be doing this work for climate and for their own institutions and communities. So we're asking, we'll provide a media kit if you're able to support by sharing that. Also, if you have newsletters coming up, if you have a conference coming up, if you have a member spotlight that you would like talking points for, or would even like us and our other team members, we're happy to bring in them as well to, help convey this importance and recruit and we really want people to basically sign up that they're going to participate in the survey. And so it will be then released in January of the beginning of 2024. We're also looking to the new year so that the data we're collecting is for the most recent year, and they'll have had all of their energy bills, submitted by then. So we're also trying to have the most recent data that we can to be collected. So that is our current path, and we wanted to open it up to you to hear your thoughts, concerns that you have with this, even gaps that we can potentially fill. And we'll, just so you know, be following up as material is developed with you, and even those who reached out and let us know they couldn't attend today but are interested in promoting this effort as well. So wanted to hear some initial thoughts and happy to answer any questions as well. And everyone should have their mic and camera enabled. But if not, feel free to type in the chat.
And Stephanie, do you want to stop the recording for the chat part?
Yes, I'm sorry.
Okay.
Yes.
Yeah. Thanks.
Thank you for the reminder.